All right, guys, standard 6.4a. This one's actually divided up into three chunks, A, B, and C. And let's jump into it. I'm still not doing well voice-wise, but hopefully you'll get what you need. If you have any questions through this, feel free to shoot me an email, ngallion@greenmiddlecollege.org. And even if I can't talk, I can still type, I would imagine. So, we talked about a lot of problems with the United States in the 1930s. The Great Depression is in full swing. Hoover has not done a whole lot to stop it. So now we got to do something. Well, 1932 is a presidential election year, and voters decide we don't want more Republicans like Hoover had been. We want somebody who's going to solve our problems. And so in 1932, voters elect Franklin D. Roosevelt. Franklin Roosevelt immediately starts a brand new set of programs to give relief to the people who are having a hard time and to get the economy recovering. We call these the New Deal. You've probably heard of this before. Again, three things that the New Deal does. One is offer relief to people who are poor. We want to get the economy back on its feet. But equally important is that he wants reform. He wants to make sure that this kind of thing never happens again. Now, next bullet point's a huge deal. A lot of people will tell you that the New Deal is just government officials trying to make us a socialist country. Now, look, I know where that comes from, if you've heard that before. It is definitely making us closer to socialism than what we had before, but socialism really means that the government just controls lots of factors of production. It means that the government is very much controlling the economy. And where it does some of that, there's still an awful lot of free market enterprise going on. People still own their own businesses. There's just more regulation and that kind of thing here. So please, on the test, say that no, it was not an attempt to make the U.S. socialist. If you want to believe that on your own, okay, whatever. But please, on the test, on the EOC, don't do that. Now look, the New Deal does help some people, but it doesn't solve the Depression. Spending does, and that doesn't make a lot of sense, but when we get into World War II, we'll talk a little bit more about that. The New Deal itself, though, doesn't fix it. Now, because of what happens in the New Deal, we've never had another depression that was as bad as the New Deal. Okay, so FDR's goal, stabilize the economy, help it recover, relieve suffering, okay, make people comfortable to live their lives again. The very first thing that FDR does is he says, let's have a 4-day bank holiday. Remember the bank runs? People have been running to the banks and withdrawing all their money. So FDR takes office and he says, let's stop that, okay? He gets on the radio within the first week in office and he says, please have faith in the banks. We're going to shut them down for 4 days just to calm you down. At the end of the 4 days, guess what? Money's still going to be in the bank, okay? So just trust us. And those 4 days that he closes the banks down is enough to get people's heads screwed on straight. So things really do get better. In this cartoon, you see people from the east, the west, the north, and the south bringing their confidence into the government, just like they'd put their deposits in the bank. Okay. After the initial rush with the banks, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. After the bank run threat is over, Roosevelt continues to give these addresses, these fireside chats to Americans. People love the idea that the president was using the radio to talk to them. FDR also says, in one of these addresses, he says, we're going to set up an organization called the FDIC. Now, what the FDIC does is it insures your money. It stands for the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. If you have up to $250,000 in a bank and the bank goes under, the government will pay you back. And the max, again, is $250,000 per bank. So if you have one, Chase account, one SunTrust account, one Bank of America account, well, you can store $750,000. Okay. Let's see. He wants to put regulations on the stock market because he saw people borrowing on margin, borrowing money they didn't even have, and that contributed to the problem. So he wants to place regulations on the stock market. He creates the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, to make sure that people are being honest in the way they're handling stocks. We don't want people, doing sketchy stuff. That still exists today, the SEC. He gives millions of dollars to the states for relief. Now, here's the deal. Yes, it creates a deficit. He's the first president to spend money that we don't actually have. It's basically going to borrow money. He says this will prime the pump. He looks at the business cycle and he says all we need to do is give people some money. If they have money, they'll spend. If spending is happening, companies have to hire someone. They hire people, those people have money and they're going to spend it. That's his idea. He also creates a number of agencies, and we call these agencies alphabet soup because most of them are just a bunch of letters. So, for example, we have the AAA, which gives money to farmers not to grow crops. You say, why would they do that? Remember, one of the problems is that farmers are growing too many crops. So what we want to do is to get them to stop. Okay, don't grow crops at all so that the price of corn and wheat can go back up. So these guys are saying, awesome, farmers get a holiday. Don't have to do that stuff anymore. Okay, that's the AAA. Pay farmers not to grow so that we can stabilize the amount of crops we've got. That's what I just told you. Stabilize prices, raises incomes. The real problem here is that if you're a tenant farmer, you're a sharecropper, you didn't make the decision not to grow. Like, you know, you need to grow crops in order to sell stuff so you can survive. And now the guy who actually owns it is being told, we'll give you money not to grow. So he says, fine. People on my land, don't grow stuff. This is a significant deal because a lot of these people are black, and so black people are being told don't grow and they have no livelihood. So sure, the white landowner's doing well, but black people really not doing so well with this program. You got the TVA, which stands for the Tennessee Valley Authority. TVA means the Tennessee Valley Authority, what it does, it says around the Tennessee Valley you've got a lot of rural areas that don't have power. So what they're going to do is dam up a river or a number of rivers, construct these things in 7 states, and run electricity to various houses. So now rural areas are going to get power. Georgia gets some of this, North Carolina, Tennessee, clearly. This is a big deal. People have jobs now. The government's hiring them to do this work. That's the idea. Put money in people's pocket so they can go out and spend and stimulate the economy. There's the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps. They hire young men to go build public utilities like bridges and hospitals and schools. If you go out to Paris Mountain, there's a bridge that actually says on it was made by the CCC. WPA does something very similar. They hire Americans to build other public utilities like, it could be bridges again. They're also going to fund cultural programs, art, poetry, history. We're just going to do whatever we can to get people working to stimulate the economy. You don't have to know all these things. You just have to know what the general goal is. So look, people do have jobs. People do spend money. This does stimulate the economy. But again, the New Deal does not totally recover the economy back to where it was. And that is 6.4a. The next video is 6.4b. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, ngallion@greermiddlecollege.org, and I will see you next time.